So everyone knows that jumping the broom is a very popular tradition that African Americans continually practice during wedding ceremonies. Historically speaking, this wedding tradition is said to have been popularized by enslaved African Americans. And although it can be a great way to honor the journey of your ancestors, our legacy as a people is far greater than that. On your great day, you want to commemorate and honor the splendor and excellence of your heritage. So for us, this is the top 5 African wedding traditions you can incorporate into your wedding. What up, African family? It's your boy Home Team here, and I'm back at it with another video of African history, culture, and worldview. And remember, if you want access to sources, courses, or exclusive videos, or if you simply want to support the Home Team, you can do so on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of African wedding traditions that occur even before the big day, like the very elaborate system of gift giving in particular African cultures, and also the things concerning the activities males have to do in order to gain the approval of the bride's family. All these African traditions overflow with majesty and grace, but for us today, they might not be as practical, especially for us in the diaspora who live in a more urban setting. I mean, it'd be kind of hard to purchase cattle for your soon-to-be bride. But I personally thought that this is the best thing that we in the diaspora can do to incorporate into our big day. So yeah, like mentioned before, we sometimes imagine this idea that the only way to connect to our roots is by jumping the broom, a tradition that's been largely associated with African Americans. We're probably the only group of people that largely define ourselves through the lens of our dark ages, and that needs to end. It will kind of be like Jews using a tradition they may have developed during the Holocaust and using that as their primary form of celebration during their wedding ceremony, when we know their history and their culture are leaps and bounds beyond that. Your wedding day is special, and it should reflect your grand and unique history. We're not a people simply descended from our dark ages. We're much more than that, and our wedding day should exemplify that reality. We come from a people with much history, an ancient people that influenced the world with its rich culture. These are the things that we should reflect on and embrace during our day of romance and love. So without further ado, these are the top 5 things we in the diaspora can do on our wedding day that'll put a smile on our ancestors' face. So everyone likes food, right? To be honest, with this first tradition coming in number 5, we in the diaspora have probably been doing this even before we knew it was African. Call it ancient memory, if you will. This tradition is something simple. It's called Chilanga Mulilo, and it hails from the Bemba people of Zambia. The Bemba are a Bantu people from southern Africa, so if you happen to know you have some Bantu ancestry, this might be something you can incorporate. The Chilanga Mulilo is a tradition in which the bride's family takes different dishes from her own family and presents them to the groom's family, giving a sort of symbolic preview of what the groom will be eating when married. And so ladies, this is a tremendous opportunity to show off and send a great message to your mother-in-law that her son will be well taken care of, and also that she can comfortably pass the torch on to you. Not only do you get to show off the unique dishes from your own family unit, but everybody gets to throw down and enjoy it. Now, even though we in the diaspora have been doing this for a while, we can now put more meaning to it and call it by its African name, Chilanga Mulilo. Next, at number 4, we have the money spray. In Nigeria, especially among Yoruba and Igbo cultures, the tradition of tossing money at the bride is called the money spray, and it's a celebrated part of the wedding ceremony. Typically, guests put bills on the bride's head and make it rain from there as she dances. And of course, if you invite the right people, sometimes your own family is going to have to help you collect it all. The purpose of the money spray is to really help the couple build a solid foundation as they start their new life together. The history of the money spray is very special because it's more modern African history than ancient. Even though the Nigerian version of making it rain in its modern form is probably an extension of an earlier tradition, it became an integral part of Nigerian life after the country's independence. It's representative of not only the wealth of the people, but the country's culture as a whole. And breaking our top 3, we have the libation ceremony. The libation ceremony is not necessarily unique to any particular African people. In all honesty, this is probably the most holistically African thing you can do at your wedding because it's universally practiced by nearly all African cultures. The honoring and veneration of your ancestors is no doubt an ancient African tradition. Pouring libations is a part of nearly every traditional African belief system. In many African religions, respecting and honoring your ancestors is of great importance. under the gods themselves, then came your ancestors. Libation ceremonies are a happy way to honor and include the ancestors. Typically, alcohol is poured into the ground in each direction. Then prayers or toasts are recited in honor of your ancestors or recently deceased loved ones. And it's also important to say their names if you know them. For the diaspora, no matter your religious affiliation, acknowledging your ancestors is inherently African and a great way to honor them during your wedding ceremony. Coming in at number 2, we have the breaking of the kola nuts. In some West African cultures, kola nuts are thought to have healing properties. In Nigeria, kola nuts are broken and shared among the couple and their parents during a welcoming ceremony. In Senegal, if the bride's family accepts the groom's proposal, they share kola nuts sent from the groom with friends and neighbors. The kola nut, which is largely used for medicinal purposes, represents the couple's willingness to always help heal each other during their marriage. And coming in at number 1, we have my personal favorite, the tasting of the 4 elements. The tasting of the 4 elements comes straight from the Yoruba and is one of the most intricate African traditions you can use during your ceremony. Now, of course, I'm a little biased because I use this for my wedding ceremony, but it's still a great African tradition. The West African Yoruba recognize that marriage does not always promise a state of euphoria or peace on a daily basis. In their tradition, couples participate in the tasting of the 4 elements of life: bitter, sweet, sour, and hot, as well as water to cleanse the palate, as a way of demonstrating the fullness of experience that each married couple will meet over time. Typically, a tasting ceremony occurs before the bride and groom speak their vows to each other. A tray of the 5 items, usually cayenne pepper, lemon, honey, vinegar, and water, is placed on the altar or a side table. The officiant explains the reason for the ritual. The groom is then invited to feed the bride the first taste. She then herself feeds him his taste as well. As each item is tasted, the officiant describes the types of situations and circumstances that may arise that represent that flavor. For example, cayenne pepper evokes passion, whether the height of intimacy or rage. The bitterness of vinegar represents the feeling of defeat that comes when a plan has gone wrong, a goal has not been reached, or a vow has been broken. After each taste, the couple cleanses their palate with water. The officiant explains that in this way, they will move on in the knowledge that together they can stand strong before whatever comes their way. Well, I'm pretty much all out, guys. I really hope I provided you guys with a decent list to take from to potentially incorporate into your wedding day. As descendants of African people, we have so much to pull from and use as our culture is rich and full of beauty. And as always, if you like these videos, you can always support in its continued production on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.